Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it tomorrow. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. Until I'm running out of breath, or tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests, present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And this is episode 122. And this week's guest is actor, podcaster, and reality television personality Ming Chen. He co-hosts the I Sell Comics podcast with Mike Zapchik and also starred in AMC's reality series, Comic Book Men. Plus, he spent some time in Michigan going to U of M, University of Michigan. So we talk a lot about that. And during our conversation, we talked about our love of John Wesley Shipp, who was Flash in the movie. And anybody who knows, and you'll hear why I bring him up, his experience at last year's Astronomicon pop culture convention here in Michigan, some of Ming's favorite Michigan hangouts, the difference in conventions, the Vault of Midnight comic book store, podcasting in his new podcasting studio, and the importance of comic book stores and conventions. And Ming Chen will also be a guest again at this year's Astronomicon pop culture convention on February 8th through the 10th at Wyndham Garden in Sterling Heights, Michigan. And like we mentioned on the previous episode with Katie and Mika from Paranormal Activity, we're continuing on with the contest on Instagram to give away three pairs of general admission weekend passes to Astronomicon. So head over to the Fresh is the Word Instagram account at Fresh is the Word podcast. And we'll be running this contest to the end of the month, and we'll be picking the winners on February 2nd. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foulmouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And I also want to remind you how you can support the podcast. You can always go to freshasthepodcast.com and share any links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere where podcasts are streamed, and that includes places like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Podbean and Google Play, pretty much everywhere, Stitcher Radio, Anchor. And if you leave a comment or a rating or review, that would be great, especially on Apple Podcasts. And also, you can, if you want to email me any information or any comments or questions or whatnot, you can always hit me up at djkfresh@gmail.com. And also, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at kfreshistheword, and on Facebook at facebook.com/kfresh. And you can follow Fresh is the Word on social media, on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's Fresh is the Word with IZ as the is. And on Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and at Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And without further ado, let's get on to the interview with Ming Chen. So this is the second year you're going to be at Astronomicon, and before we get into everything, I'm actually doing a ticket giveaway on this podcast, Fresh is the Word, for 3 pairs of tickets to Astronomicon. Pretty much all the rules are on the show notes for this podcast episode and the previous one with Katie and Mika from Paranormal Activity. But just to remind everybody, if you go to the Instagram account for Fresh is the Word at Fresh is the Word Podcast, then there's all the rules on there. And one of the rules is definitely to follow Ming Chen on Instagram. What would people say?
Thank you.
Yeah, what would people see on your Instagram? What do you like to put on your Instagram account?
They're gonna see a lot of food. Like whenever I'm in the Detroit area, there's always a picture of Lafayette Coney dogs. That's a definite.
Oh hell yeah! Oh hell yeah!
Yeah,
Lafayette is the delicacy.
And then I travel a lot. You know, I go to a lot of Comic Cons. So you see my adventures and my misadventures. So there's from Detroit, for example, there's definitely pictures of me over at Nancy Whiskey and Old Miami, and things like that. So and then at cons, every so often I bump into cool people that everybody else knows, Mark Hamill, or Chris Hemsworth, or stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not above bragging that I met an adventure, so.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you the other day. You met John Wesley Shipp.
Yes, love that guy,
dude.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Flash, but not only the current Flash, but the old Flash from the '90s.
Right.
And I'm beyond enamored that he's not only back in the current timeline, but then they bring him back in the Elseworld storyline, and he gets to wear the old '90s costume, and he gets to play Barry Allen from the '90s era TV show. Like, that's comics to me, man. That's cool. Like, that's one show that's definitely getting it right.
Hell yeah! And what's cool about him is that, like, in real life, if you follow him on Twitter, he's like super woke. He's like seems so super cool.
Yeah, totally, just a great guy, and very, very appreciative of his fans. And I mean, I'm sure back in the '90s, he was like, well, I got one season. I guess, it didn't work out, and, I'm going to hang up the suit, and that was just part of my acting history. And lo and behold, 24 years later, they asked him to come back. So, yeah, it's crazy, right?
Right. Reason I bring him up is that I was actually named after his character, Kelly Nelson, when he was on the soap opera Guiding Light.
No way. He would love that. Have you met him?
No, but I tweeted about it one time, and he replied to me about it.
That's so cool. That's amazing, man. I love that. Yeah, he's a really cool guy, just really gracious of his fans. And, in the realm of people that you meet at Comic-Cons, he's one of the best. So.
Right. And then I just found out that his birthday was 2 days ago, and my birthday was yesterday.
Oh, wow. That's right. Okay, so I don't know. You might be related, man. Like, who knows?
Right. I don't know, man. There's all these things coming up. We're both January Aquariuses, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, all this stuff is like coming out, and I'm like, all right, this guy is the coolest person ever now.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, he's just one of the examples of cool people you meet at Comic-Con. So and Astronomicon definitely falls in that category. I looked through the guest list. If there's one person I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's there, is Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yes.
And, I'm a big not WWE, WWF wrestling fan. And if he wants to drop a DDT on me, that would be kind of awesome.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm excited that he's gonna be there. There's some cool other wrestlers that gonna be there too, like Gold Dust. He's gonna be in full Gold Dust regalia, dude. It's gonna be
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, that's crazy, man. That's just awesome.
So what was your experience like last year at Astronomicon?
I had a great experience. So 3-day con, it went Friday to Sunday, and I'm from the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. I went to school at U of M, and before that, I spent some time in Jackson. Luckily, not at the prison, but and I hope to never be in that prison.
No.
However, I've spent a majority of my life in Michigan, so it was cool to be back at a hometown convention, and not only just a hometown convention, but a really well-run one. A really fun one that had a great crowd and a great guest list and a bunch of great vendors. And it was cool because since I grew up there, a lot of my friends were able to come out. And, I was just able to return home, which was cool. The Friday of the con, I know you went as well. The first night of the con, it poured down snow, man. I think it snowed 15, 16 inches.
Yeah.
I'm driving to the convention center, and it's snowing, and I can barely see. And I was kind of like, no one's going to show up to this. Like, we're like 4 people are going to come out. Think that it snows, but that's life. And I walked in the door, the place was packed. And
Right.
what I realized was that the Astronomicon and the Twisted fans are dedicated. They don't care about weather. They don't care about delays. They will drive through a blinding snowstorm to get to where they're going. And that was cool. So not only did I meet all the Twisted fans, but we have a almost 100% crossover with them as far as pop culture, comic book men fans, and Twisted. So I get to meet all of them, and I saw their dedication, and I loved it, and I can't wait to see them again. And not only that, but the Michigan pop culture fans are rabid, man. They're dedicated, and because I'm one of them, and
Right.
it was cool to see all of them. So I had a great time. Jason Mewes was out, and Brian O'Halloran was out. So and Brian Johnson from Comic Man was there. So I had a couple friends there. But, I got to meet a lot of cool people as well. I believe Kane was there and Sid Haig, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And not only did we have a panel, but we moderated panels. And people came out. They gave me, I got bottles of Faygo and Better Made potato chips. It was a great weekend, man. So I can't wait to come back.
Right, with Astronomicon being this, it was a new pop culture convention last year, and it was more of an intimate setting in comparison to a lot of the big Comic Cons now. What do you see the difference between the two?
It's tough. I mean, I've been to New York and San Diego and some of the bigger cons. I mean, you're just crushed in a wave of people, and it's not like getting from point A to point B, or just seeing the whole floor. It takes days, and I feel very rushed at those other conventions. I feel, like I go to a vendor booth and there's so many, you're dodging people and people are getting in your way, and I don't feel like I can dig, we're all collectors here. I want to dig to find that one thing I'm looking for. And there's a lot of anxiety. That's
Right.
what it is. Not Astronomicon is very laid back. You could talk to the vendors. You could be like, hey man, I'm looking for a dragon egg from Game of Thrones. You have one. I don't see one. And then, sometimes like, oh yeah. I got one under the table here, or it's behind this. And it was cool. I felt like I got a chance to talk to everybody and geek out with them.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved about it. And not only the vendors and some of the people who are at the vendor and artist alley tables, but the guests as well. You're going to have a chance to hang out, like actually have an experience with them. And you won't, these other big box cons, you're a number. You're a wallet, basically. That you're there. They give you your autograph, maybe a handshake, and then pay, move along. And you don't really get time to have an experience with them. And I don't really get the point if that's the case. So, but not Astronomicon. You'll get a chance to hang out with all the guests there, which
Right.
is great, including me. Come if you want to talk 20 minutes about Funko Pop figures and and Tweeter head statues and Gentle Giant and Sideshow. Like I'm just as big a fan as you are. So I welcome that. I want to talk about this stuff with you.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about Astronomicon is if let's just say you can't afford to buy the photo op or the autograph or whatever. like everyone's around, so you can chat with them and just meet them, be like, hey, what's up? I'm just a big fan of yours.
Yep.
That's something that you can't get at the big conventions, because everybody's kind of
Oh yeah, forget about listen. I mean, I know it's partially a business, but when I was going to cons, it was about meeting, the creators of your favorite comic book, or occasionally you get to meet someone from your past, past TV or movie, and I know they got got to make some money selling autographs, and but me myself, like I never want to force anyone to buy a photo or an autograph. Like if you get one, I want that to be a treasured item. And, if you can't afford it, or maybe you just plain don't want one, but you want to talk, I got no problem with that. That's cool.
Yeah, and also when I'm at any of these conventions, I do hang out in the artist alley part of it mostly. That's just where I like to go. And when I talk to a lot more of the people that I've become friends with, a lot of them like the smaller conventions. They have a lot more success at those, because at the bigger conventions, they're kind of they're away from the traffic almost. That's where they're placed. But if you go to like at Astronomicon, like they're easily accessible and people can see these smaller, these independent creators.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's cool. I always say, if you're a fan of the show Comic Book Men, for instance, a lot of people can't make it to New Jersey to our comic book stores. So I come to you, man. I come to you, and I just have the added bonus of I'm from Michigan, so I feel your pain of being stuck on traffic on 94, and I eat Coney dogs and I drink Vernors like you guys do. Like I feel
right.
I feel we're all kind of from the same family. The Michigan pop culture fan is very unique, is very cool, and I feel we grew up with a different experience than everybody else.
Right.
I can relate to you.
Oh, definitely. When you're at these sort of pop culture conventions like Astronomicon, what are the things that you're talking to with people the most?
It's a mix. Some people are, obviously fans of the TV show, which is great. I loved being on the show. I love that people actually watched it, which is cool. So, they'll have a memory from a specific episode that they want me to expand on, or they have a question about an item that came in the shop, or and then the other part is people who are Kevin Smith fans. They want to know that I've worked with Kevin for many years. They want to know what he's really like, what it's like hanging out with him. They have questions. I have intimate knowledge about pretty much all the movies he's worked on, and so they have questions about that. So that's pretty much. And then the other half is just people who love talking about pop culture and comics that maybe at home they don't have friends who are into the same stuff they are, and they're just starved to talk about, like a Game of Thrones or a specific comic book storyline. And I'm there for that as well. I'm there kind of as an outlet, and I love the same stuff that you guys do. So I will be just as much of a hardcore geek as you guys are.
Are you doing any panels at Astronomicon?
I haven't gotten the schedule yet, but we're always on a panel. I imagine me and Mike Zapsik will have a panel for sure. So I don't know when that is currently. I think they're still arranging the schedule, but I imagine it'll be on Saturday or Sunday.
Word. What are you doing these days outside of doing the convention circuits?
So I'm at the convention. I pop in the store every so often, but me and Mike Zapsik just partnered on a new venture. As you know, we love podcasting. We're seeing podcasting on Comic Book Men. We've been podcasting on Kevin Smith's network for about 9 years now, and we followed in the footsteps of Kevin, who is a podcast pioneer. And while we were going to conventions or at the store, people were constantly coming up to us saying, "Hey, man, I love your podcast. I love Kevin's podcast. I want to start my own. Like, how do I do it?" And we would give them a little quick 10-minute lesson, but what we always wanted to do was open up a whole recording studio just for podcasting.
Yeah.
And about a year ago, that's what we did. We opened up a place called a Shared Universe Podcast Studio. We grabbed some studio space. It's right down the street from the store. And we help businesses and individuals and pop culture fans start their own podcasts. And it's been going pretty well so far.
What kind of tools and what kind of knowledge do you give to these people that want to start their own podcasts?
Well, most people don't. The question I would get is, what kind of gear do I need? What kind of technical knowledge do I need? what kind of they were. It's a lot of moving pieces, and if you're podcasting, the only thing you really want to deal with is talking. Either talking to guests, talking about a specific subject, talking about your business, talking about your passions. You don't want to deal with buying a specific microphone or buying mixing boards. We take care of all that for you. So what we love people to do is just come in and podcast. We want them to come in and, if they want to start a Star Wars podcast, then talk about Star Wars. If they want to talk about the music industry, if they want to talk about partying, if they want to talk about food, whatever, that's all we want them to worry about. So, we have everything here. We have the best gear here. We have amazing microphones. Some of the microphones we have here were used on the set of Comic Book Men, so it's cool. Our environment is very pop culture oriented. It's all the stuff I've collected from conventions is all up on the wall now. All the lightsabers, pictures with Stan Lee, like all that is up on the wall. So it's very, very comfortable environment.
Right. Between that, working at your shop, all the years, Comic Book Men, or even being a part of Kevin Smith's Smodcast network, all these tools, all these podcast tools that you're seeing, what sort of positivity does that bring to the culture when you have certain small parts of the culture that can be very negative, bullying, whatnot towards the fans of the culture? What sort of positivity do you want to bring to it all?
I think we've encouraged it. As you mentioned, you bring up the word bullying. When I was little, comic books and even liking Star Wars was not cool. If you were known as a comic book fan, if you liked sci-fi in school, people would taunt you. I never got beat up over it, but I met people who have. They were constantly being harassed for liking comic books, and back, not that long ago, you were told if you like comic books, if you liked Marvel, you weren't cool. Like people didn't think you were cool. They didn't want to talk to you. You were an outcast. And it's funny that 5-10 years later, the Marvel universe is cool. Everyone loves the Avengers. The word Avengers Endgame is on everybody's lips. Everybody's wearing a Star Wars something or other T-shirt,
right,
or whatever. Yeah. So I think it's very encouraging. But if I had any words for anybody out there, for any kids or whatever, don't let people dissuade you from doing what you love. Just because even if everybody says, "Oh man, liking that is not cool," you shouldn't do it. You should be like, "That's crap, man. This is cool. I think it's cool, and I'm going to keep doing it." And as an example, it worked out for me. I never lost my love of pop culture and James Cameron movies and The Terminator. And lo and behold, I wound up on a TV show for 7 seasons talking about aliens and Marvel movies. And if you keep doing what you love, good things tend to happen. So people are wrong, man. Even if they're whatever they're telling you is not cool, it is definitely cool because you like it. I love it. The one question I usually get now is, "Hey, I know you love comic books and Superman and stuff in the past. What's it like that comic books and stuff like that are cool now?" And I'm like, "What do you mean they're cool now? They were always cool. I always knew they were cool. I never wavered. You guys were the ones that were behind. You guys were the ones that didn't see it. So we were the ones that were always right. And we're the winners here." So that's what I tell people.
How do you feel like these cultures, these pop culture cultures, with comic books, movies, and whatnot? How do you feel like they bring people together?
Oh, I mean, by far. I mean, you look at the Comic Cons. New York Comic Con, 200,000 people. San Diego, 150,000 people. Even smaller cons. Even if you get 200, 300, 500 people in a weekend, those are fans that are able to gather. And I always go to a con. And I always make new friends. And then if I come back to a con like Astronomicon, I'm going to see friends that I made last year. So they definitely bring people together. If there's one thing a pop culture comic book fan has, it's an opinion. And I love arguing opinions. I love arguing storylines. In the past, I didn't really have anyone to argue with. But now, on any given weekend, I can go to a Comic-Con and meet, tens of thousands of people who read that same storyline I did, and I have someone to talk to, and that brings us together. And we can go and have a beer and talk about what we think Stranger Things 3 is going to be about, or we can talk about flux capacitors like all night long. And I mean, it's definitely bringing people together, and I love it. And there's some people who go to cons. They may be socially awkward, but they'll meet like-minded people and open up right away. The conventions, events, things like this are bringing people out of their bedrooms, out of their houses, and meeting other like-minded people that they feel comfortable with hanging out with. And there's nothing wrong with making a new friend. It's always a good experience.
How important do you feel like, and this is somebody who, has their own shop, that what's the importance of the comic book store?
Again, that's also a gathering place as well. And, these days, if you look at statistics, there aren't a lot of comic book news stores being open. It's a tough business right now, especially with all the distractions out there. And even though the movies are cool and people are going in looking for origin stories and reading books, opening up a store is a tough business. It's print, selling print, anything print right now is a tough business. So, a lot of stores have to go the extra mile to get people in. A lot of after hours events. There are events like Free Comic Book Day, New Comics Day on every Wednesday is pretty cool. So it's important to have a gathering place, whether it be every Wednesday or whenever you can go get your books. I always love going into the stores because I love the people who ran them. I knew that they had a passion for comic books. I knew that they put their heart and soul and, many times all of their life savings into opening the store because they loved it. And I've loved going in because I knew I had someone to talk to about, movie storylines or movie news that I just heard. And then I'd be, hey guys, new books. I'm like, what's good? What did you guys read this week? Why should I be reading this? It's kind of like having it was like a comic book version of Cheers, really. It's kind of like, that's how I think of every comic book store where, they definitely knew my name.
Right.
And they knew who I was because I came in every week. And I would see regulars there, and I knew that I could, and they would let me hang out there for hours if I wanted to, and talk about my passions. Right.
And that's how I feel like that's how I feel at have you ever been to the Vaults of Midnight comic book store?
Oh yeah. Dude, I started going to Vaults of Midnight when they first opened in 1996.
Yeah.
In the first floor of a this brown house on Ashley Street in Ann Arbor when it looked like it's about to fall down. And I met Curtis and Steve, the two guys who ran it.
Yeah.
And I saw those guys run it with so much passion and love. And I know they poured their life savings into that. And to see them come from that to where they are now at the Eisner Award-winning store with 3 locations around Michigan, and just, and one of the best, not only best comic book stores, but best back issue store and best gaming store. And they're one of the guys where you can go in and hang out for hours with them,
right?
And they'll indulge you in whatever passion that you're affiliated with. That's cool. I mean, they Curtis and Steve at Voldemort definitely had a big influence on me growing up in the Ann Arbor area. And I probably wouldn't be on Comic Book Man if it wasn't for them.
Right. And I love that they have a Detroit location because Detroit never had a location in the city. And one of the cool things about it was, I remember probably within the past 6 months, I was at the Detroit location of Vault of Midnight, and there was a whole group of like maybe 5 or 6 black kids, maybe early 20s, and they were having this conversation about the evolution of realizing that they loved comic books and not wanting to talk about it, to realizing that everybody else in the hood loved comic books also.
Oh yeah, it's a universal love, and like we said before, it definitely brings people together, and I think the world would be a better place if everyone just read a couple comic books every week.
Right. It was just funny that they were like, he's like, yeah, I like all these comic books, but I'm not trying to tell anybody because they might laugh at me. But then they realized everybody else that they knew were doing the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was a cool thing to see that, like, how these comic book stores, especially where they're placed too, in the areas, can definitely bring people together. So what's next for you? Is there anything else besides the podcasting platform that you're going to be working on or being featured on?
I mean, I'm just going to go to cons this year. All my times have been pouring into this podcast studio. So, our goal is to open up podcast studios around the country, the world even. And, I think I want everyone to start a podcast. So, hopefully I can reach that goal, within the next few years. And if they want a podcast, I want them to come to a shared universe.
Right, definitely. What is it about the podcasting platform that you like the most, and that you feel like?
You know what I love about it? I grew up listening to Howard Stern and guys like that, and so I was definitely influenced by them. But I always felt that radio, even Howard Stern radio, he couldn't say whatever he wanted. There would always, even though he was supposedly shocking, he had rules. There are things he couldn't say. There are things he couldn't say. And what I love about podcasting is you can say whatever you want. You can record whenever you want. You control every aspect of that. You have complete freedom, and that's what I love about it. You can have your own show. You don't need to be on a radio station. You don't need to audition for a radio station. You don't need to go to school. All you need to have is an opinion and a voice. And I think it's gonna catch on where people are gonna realize this, and they're gonna be like, "Whoa, this is cool."
Right. What if there was any sort of like nugget of knowledge from your life or career that anybody listening to this interview could sort of project in their own life, whether they are in the same artistry or industry that you're in, what would that be?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Just do what you love, man, because life is short, and if you want to play video games, great. Play video games. Twitch stream it, and make money that way. If you love podcasting, start a podcast. If you want to start a YouTube channel, start the YouTube channel. If you want to go to Comic-Cons and collect books and maybe flip them on eBay and make money that way, do what you love. Find a way to make money at it, but do what you love, because life is short, and you don't want to be toiling away either doing something that someone says you're supposed to be doing, or toiling away at something because you don't think you can get out of it. Try to spend some time in your day doing something you love, because life is so short and you can't waste a second of it.
Cool. These days, in just the whole comic book world, is there any, titles or authors or artists that you are pretty much a fan of that you could recommend for anybody?
I mean, guys like Jim Lee and Greg Capullo, or two of my top, and then writer wise, Brian K. Vaughan and Snyder and Tom King are also some of my favorites. But I mean, there's so many, and not even mainstream ones. But if you go to cons, you'll see some of support the indie creators, man, because they're kind of like the podcasters of the comic book world. They make books that they want to make from their heart, and they kind of do whatever they want, and as a result, a lot of them are incredible.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite part of going to, like I said earlier, going to comic book conventions, is meeting the indie comic book creator and artist alley. Yeah. And I've read so many great books because of just meeting people at these comic book conventions, and they're all, and most of them are always cool to talk with, and they'll give you the little spiel about everything going on in their comic book universe.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So, yeah, definitely support the independent artists.
Cool.
And creators.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, before we get out of here for this interview, is there any last thoughts you want to say to the listeners about yourself, or even Astronomicon coming up?
I mean, if you're anywhere near the Sterling Heights area, definitely go to Astronomicon February 8th to the 10th. It is one of the most fun conventions I've ever been to, and maybe I'm a little biased because I'm from the area. But if you're also from the area, one, you're gonna have a great time. I almost guarantee it. Definitely come and say hello to me and Mike Zapsik, and keep reading books, man. Keep loving, whatever Netflix series you're addicted to. Keep rewatching those movies that you love, and pop culture is awesome, man. We're getting more Star Wars, we're getting more Game of Thrones, we're getting all the cool stuff now, and watch it, love it, and treasure it.
Great. It's been great talking with you, Ming. And where can people go online to get more information about you?
I'm all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Just go to Ming Chen 37, MINGCHEN 37, and come visit the store, man, in Jersey. Come on over.
Great, and remember, we're still giving away 3 pairs of tickets to the Astronomicon pop culture event in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Just go to freshasthepodcast.com, and there will be instructions on the show notes for this episode. And you can also go to the Fresh as the Word podcast Instagram page at Fresh as the Word podcast. So Ming, it's been great talking with you, and have a good time. And
Thank
I'll
you,
definitely
my friend.
see you at Astronomicon.
I will see you there.
All right, later. So that was my interview with Ming Chen. It was great to talk with him. Definitely excited for Astronomicon coming up in a couple weeks on February 8th through the 10th at Wyndham Garden in Sterling Heights, Michigan. And you can always go to astronomicon.com for more information and ticket information for that event. And also you can always go to the show notes for this episode at freshasthepodcast.com for links where to follow Ming Chen or any of the Astronomicon social media accounts. And just to remind you, we're still running this contest on the Fresh as the Word podcast Instagram at Fresh as the Word podcast for 3 pairs of general admission weekend passes to Astronomicon. So go over there, read the rules, and enter as many times as you want, pretty much. So that's another interview, another episode, another awesome talk with an awesome guest in the books. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.